Good morning, my beautiful friends. I wanted to take a moment and introduce myself as I have had a lot of new friends join the family, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about myself so that we can get to know each other. So, I am a life coach, and I love what I do, and it hasn't always been this way. I used to live my life very much closed off. I was living like a lot of people do, with a 9 to 5 job, going back and forth to work, never truly feeling fulfilled, never feeling like I was contributing. I was going from bad relationship to bad relationship. I didn't have any self-worth. And I was giving myself beyond what I was receiving. And this pattern started young. This pattern started when I was in my teen years. And it started out slowly, but over time, these things became cycles. These things became larger and larger patterns that I repeated throughout my life. And it wasn't until I had my children that I realized that I had to stop these patterns, that I realized that I could not allow them to live the life I was living. Because I started to see these patterns were not only mine, they were generational. And so I wanted to change that. And so I started looking at ways to change myself. Now, I would like to be able to tell you that I started this journey and it was easy, but it wasn't. And it took 8 years of struggling and searching and feeling alone and doing what I thought would make change, but it never really made the change that I was looking for. And I can remember feeling so defeated, feeling so lost, lying in bed after my kids had gone to bed, just not understanding that I couldn't change my life. And it was because I didn't have the skills to change my life. The person I had been up until that point had gotten me to that point. But I wasn't learning what I needed to learn in order to change my life, in order to make my life the way I wanted it to be. And so I would repeat these patterns. And so I was working in a job where I thought I loved it. I thought, it was a great job. I was helping, I was training dogs and I was breeding puppies. I mean, it was amazing, but it was very physically demanding and it was very time consuming. And along with that, I was also going to the gym every day and hating my body, hating myself, pushing myself beyond the limits. I was also in relationships that were taking more than they were giving. They were using me for my light and my happiness and my joy, and I was happy to give it because I had no boundaries. And I didn't know that boundaries even existed at that point. So what happened was, over the course of a couple of years, I started getting migraines, and they would take me out of work for 4 days at a time every month. Started out slowly. It started every other month or every couple months, and then it was every month. Until finally I was sitting around a table or around a group of friends, and they were talking, and I couldn't get words out of my mouth because my brain was so painful that the conversation was understood, but there was no response. And I really thought I was having a stroke. And so I took myself to the hospital, and the nurse sat me down. She hooked up an IV, and she said, this is normal. I see this all the time. And I thought to myself, how can this be considered normal? How can this exhaustion be considered normal? And so I started thinking about that. That was another wake-up call for me. The first one was my children. The second one was this nurse. And so I started looking at ways of making change. I started trying to be more gentle with myself. I stopped pushing myself the way I was at the gym. I stopped working physically as much as I was at work. I started going to yoga, but I started going to yoga in the most painful way possible. I went from working out at the gym 2 hours a day to going to yoga for 2 hours a day and physically pushing myself. And so I was putting band-aids. I was putting band-aids on wounds that were leaking. I was putting bubble gum on holes of the ship. And so a couple months went by like that until I emotionally broke down. I emotionally broke down when I had a small incident with my son, and I realized I couldn't live my life this way anymore. And I got down on my hands and knees and I begged for a different way, because I could not live the way I was living. It was so painful. I could not see staying in this life anymore, because the life I was living was torturous. And so at that point, I had no faith. I had no belief in something more than myself. And I got down on my hands and knees and I begged for help. And the very next day, an opportunity came to me that changed my life. And I took it. And I started taking opportunity, and I started making change, and I started learning, and I started opening up, and things started falling into place. Things that seem completely magical started falling into place, because I started creating my life. I started looking for things that made me happy. I started moving away from the things that took from me and moving towards the things that gave to me. And so 3 years have gone by, and I have immersed myself in psychology and philosophy. I have learned from teachers all over the world, famous teachers like Tony Robbins and Brene Brown, and teachers that are not so well known, but have given me knowledge that is amazing and incredibly useful. And so I've taken that and I've changed my life. I've created a life that I can create anything I desire. And I know this because I've seen it happen over and over and over again. And so what does that mean for you? Well, there was a point where I would have just gone on my way and changed my life and not really looked to help people. But then one of my best friends, who I had known for 20 years, I watched him struggle, and I watched him go through the same things that I was going through, and I watched him slowly try to change his life. And I didn't do anything. Even though I knew I had the tools, I was codependent, and I didn't step into that role. And then one day I got a call, and he had passed away suddenly. And he had passed away by accident, but I regretted not doing more. And so I vowed to start helping people change their lives. And not just change their lives in a way that over months makes change. I vowed to start making change for people in significant ways, powerfully, in a short amount of time. Because it took me 8 years, and I don't want it to take you 8 years. I want it to take you weeks. I want you to get all of the knowledge that I have received over the last decade of my life, so that you can change your life now, so that you can do it in a way that doesn't hurt. It may be uncomfortable, but it doesn't hurt. It doesn't knock you down. It lifts you up and it helps you rise. And so that's why I've become a coach. That is why I have dedicated my life to learning more, so that you can grow, so that you can change, so that you can create the life of your dreams. Because this life is meant to be wondrous. This life is meant to be powerful. This life is the only life that we get at this point. And it is for us to create. And so many of us, that normalcy, so many of us are living without experiencing that magic. And that has got to stop. That's got to change. And so my friends, I offer you myself. I offer you my knowledge and my experience so that you can grow from where you are, and that you can create and you can achieve any goal, because I know it's possible. So that is me. And I know this is a long video, but I just wanted to tell you my story and share that with you. So my beautiful friends, if you are ready, when you are ready, let's have a talk. Let's get you started, and let's get you moving forward to experience the life of your desires, because that's what it's here, and you're worthy. You are so worthy of that life. My beautiful friends, have a glorious day. We'll talk to you later.